Simon Broomer again from Career Balance. I have virtually no full-time employees. They're all virtual. And one of the concerns I have is how do I look after a virtual team of people who are spread out between Newcastle and Richmond?
I can make a suggestion about that. I think that is a challenge, and many of our charter employers are in that position, definitely. I think that through whatever ways or means you communicate with people, usually I'm presuming that's online, you visit them sometimes, and get together and so on. I think that the crucial thing is to make people or encourage people to feel involved and to feel part of things. So through whatever means you conduct your business, then use that opportunity as well to talk to people about the kind of things that they need, the kind of support that they might want, help them to feel involved, perhaps through social media, through digital as well. Now, it's not going to be so easy for you to set up a kind of healthy fruit bowl in the office, I understand that. So I think I would say that people's, the sort of psychological contract you have with them, if you like, and their psychological well-being is perhaps the most important. That said, I'm guessing that you have fairly flexible working arrangements, do you? So that in itself is a hugely positive thing, and I would see that as something that you're doing to promote their well-being. I mean, I'm of a view, and this is a personal view, that nothing can really replace face-to-face contact with people, so I'm hoping that you get together sometimes face-to-face, and maybe it's about making those occasions the opportunity to do something that's good for people's well-being, perhaps building that kind of thing into team-building exercises. But I wouldn't assume that it always has to be about people sitting together in the same office. And I know in particular film we showed definitely was sort of biased towards that because that's what makes a good film. We once worked with an organisation who had a small team in London and a small team in Birmingham, and they were under 50 employees. And they'd set up a really clever thing in their office where the boardroom table, sort of a table a bit like this, stretched and people were sitting either side of it. Then they had this clever video link where the people in the Birmingham office kind of formed the other half of the table on a screen. Now, not everyone has the luxury of that kind of technology, but it sent quite a powerful message to me which said we're part of one organisation, we're aiming for the same thing, we care about one another's well-being. Now, I mean, that might not always be possible, but, you know, there's a lot to be said for a phone call, for a teleconference, for a video conference, and just checking in with people. It's really common sense stuff. I appreciate it might sound a bit like that.
Can I?
Hi. Sorry. Ladies first.
Just to add to that, and we mentioned briefly a mental health first aid training, and just to go in a little bit more detail, and I think it is definitely worth considering. It's a 2-day course, and it's about recognising the signs of mental health and being able to signpost appropriately. Lots of organisations may have access to the course, lots of local authorities are commissioning the course, and you may be able to either buy a place on a local authority commission course. It is a nationally accredited course, started in Australia many years ago, and there are now many accredited trainees in this country, and I think it is definitely worth considering. In terms of evidence and best practice, NICE, the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, has produced guidelines for healthy workplaces. There are links on our website, and it's worth looking at those and maybe just having a checklist to ensure that you've thought about all of the things. Many have been suggested this morning, many obviously have been suggested by Charlotte, are in the Healthy Workplace Charter, but just another thing to think about.
Yeah, I mean, virtual medicine is coming, whether we like it or not. It's on the way. I believe that to do that responsibly, one of the ways to deliver a virtual medicine is to do it by way of a gatekeeper, if you like, in the form of an annual health assessment, health check, if you like, an MOT on humans. The other way that I would then suggest that you move forward is that you always, as Bob Hoskins used to say for BT, it's good to talk. There's no substitute for talking to people. and do that in a sensitive way that, you know, that patients or clients, as they are for you, or staff, are treated with dignity and respect. They will tell you things that will possibly surprise you, maybe not, but if they do share some sort of confidence with you, you treat it with the utmost respect. And I mean, we hear of all sorts of weird and wonderful situations that people are in, and the answer is to show some compassion and just to try and, first of all, listen and to try and then advise them of where to go. But virtual medicine in your particular industry is probably going to be your answer long term, but to do that in conjunction with talking and the annual MOT, as I call it, for humans.
And just in terms of Public Health England, I think part of your problem is scale rather than remoteness. I mean, as PHE nationally, I mean, our Director of Finance is based in Newcastle and our Chief Operating Officer is in Bristol. But we've got scale, so some of the infrastructure to support people and put them into local face-to-face services is different. So I think it's both a distributed model. You might want to talk to Uber. I think they might have a big one of these issues. I think that the whole nature of work and workplace practice is going to be transformational. I think we're at that cusp for a lot of organisation where this is going to be key. So what I would suggest is, network. Talk to other colleagues who are trying to put in place some practical things, learn from experience. And I think some of today is just to try and get some other ideas about that. But yes, I mean, it's a real issue, particularly for the SMEs, about how do you support people when you've got very little resource, very little expertise. My sense is that you should get the public sector to provide it. The NHS has huge HR departments and occupational health. We might even transform the quality of that if more people used it. Any more questions? Oh, we've got three. Let's do them in order. Starting from the back, then the gentleman in the middle, and the lady at the front.
It's a question for Mike. I was interested in your comments about virtual health, and you're saying that some of the insurers are slightly uncomfortable about it. I know quite a bit about digital health, the likes of Babylon and Dr. Care Anywhere. And my understanding was insurers quite liked it because every consultation, is done quickly, but more importantly, it's all digitally recorded. And some of the problems with GP consultations is that they're not recorded, and when there's problems later, it's about miscommunications. But if all the communication between patient and doctor is laid down on tape or digital tape, I would have thought insurers would be pretty happy about that. It's more watertight, and the GPs are more accountable to their patients and the advice they offer. So I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Just in terms of time, should we take the three questions in case there's some links, and then we can sort of invite...
I'll come back.
Yeah, I mean, we'll hold the question.
Yeah, hi, I'm John Allison. I'm a Health and Wellbeing Manager. Pleased to get a shout-out this morning from the Health and Wellbeing Charter. I'm very interested in the green prescription, and just keen to hear what your thoughts are on GPs referring patients to for physical activity as opposed to medication, for example. So I'm quite keen to learn more about how it would work in practice or how it will work in the future. I think we've all seen that in terms of being cost-effective, getting people away outdoors and training and away from medication is probably in the long term going to save a lot of money.
Okay, and the last question, and we'll take those three as a group and then respond.
Hi, yeah, I work in the public sector, and it seems that getting people involved in wellbeing who are genuinely interested in it is easy. It's getting the people who see it as very flowery, waste of time, it's not core duties, so that sort of thing is really difficult. And it was just advice on getting people on board and maybe changing that culture and changing that shift in thinking, if you had any advice on that, because we do it kind of on top of our day jobs, voluntary, and it's getting it embedded in the organisation.
Okay, thank you. Mike, do you want to start with one of them was specifically for you?
Hello, yes, sorry. the answer to your question is, without mentioning any company names, virtual medicine is a new industry, if you like. There are some questions which still require answers. Whilst you're right in saying that most of the virtual medicine is being recorded, a lot of patients, and I'm not a doctor, so I'm only listening to doctors' concerns that they've raised to me, is that prescribing to somebody they've never met before without any medical record is a danger waiting to happen. Now, the company you've mentioned have a very good answer to that question, and I like their answer, but I'm not sure they're going to get away with it. And they turn around and say, well, patients have a responsibility to tell the truth. Well, that's true, but patients go to doctors because they're not well. What being not well means in reality is a number of things. That's the grey area. That's the area that some of these virtual doctor services have not overcome yet. And there are ways of dealing with that. You can have your cake and eat it. There are products and there are services that doctors are quite happy to support, and there are some that they're not. And the company that you mentioned, and I'm not deliberately using their name, they have some very good points, and they have a use for certain types of medicine. It's not for every type of medicine, but it's the future. It's coming. Things are changing, you know. We've got to get used to them, and the young will naturally do that. In my day, and I talked to my son recently about a slide rule, he looked at me as if I was some sort of dinosaur. He didn't even understand one. But you know, today everybody has a mobile device. They don't have a problem with that. So it is about an education process. It is things that will get sorted out. It's very difficult. There are good points and there are bad points, as there are with everything in this world. It is something that what I call ethical doctors are very concerned about, and they're right to be concerned about it. As I said, doctors are very honourable, respectful people that take our lives and well-being very seriously, and we need to listen to them, and we need to react to them, and we need to respect them as well.
Thank you. Charlotte?
Could I respond to the question about involving staff? I don't think I have anything to add to that, but I'd like to answer the question about people who are not that interested in well-being. I think that people are interested in well-being. They just might not be very interested in choosing apples in the cafe or riding a bike to work. And I think taking well-being in its broadest sense, actually, most people in work would have quite a lot to say about the kind of thing that makes them feel well at work. So one of my suggestions would be, and you can do this in any size organisation really, but it's better in a slightly larger one, is to have some kind of staff survey where you ask questions specifically about that. And that can be everything from, you know, would you like a healthier alternative than a cafe, which is kind of the basic level about sort of healthy eating, to, you know, what challenges you about work? What would you like to change about working here? You know, what things in your life cause you stress? And I think that can give an employer quite a lot of, obviously anonymised information, but quite a lot of information about what are the concerns of people. I remember Dame Carol Black, who was the National Director for Health and Wellbeing Advice in the government, talking about, we don't really have this so much in London, but in the dockyards in Newcastle, she was working with or rather she was working with the organisation who were themselves working with some of the labourers there, and they were asked about what things they were most concerned about, and many of them were concerned that they couldn't read that well or write that clearly. And so they ran literacy classes for people in that organisation, which both changed the kind of, as we talked about, the psychological contract with the employer, but also gave them something that they were anxious and worried about and helped to address that. And once you've got a group of people getting together, talking about those kind of issues, there's all sorts of health and well-being, in the more kind of pure sense, if you like, initiatives that you can introduce. So I think an organisation which listens to its people and understands where they're coming from will often find that a lot of sort of really perhaps unusual initiatives might fall out of that. But there are some people who are never going to want to cycle to work. They're just not going to. I must be honest, I don't particularly want to myself. And it would take quite a lot, I think, for me to take a step in that direction. But if it was a lunchtime walk, I'd be more interested in that because I like talking to people and I like time away from the office, and I'm quite interested in the history in London around where I work by the river. But I think my main message in that is hear where people are coming from rather than starting with a series of initiatives and trying to push them out there to people, and you might be really surprised at some of the things that people say.
Nicola,
I'm happy to talk about the green prescription.
Sorry. No.
So just let Nicola and then we'll come back.
So the green prescription, as we call it in health and social care, is social prescribing. And social prescribing is increasingly important, particularly recognised by primary care and GPs. I think GPs are starting to recognise that they cannot do everything, and medicine is not an answer. But patients, on the other hand, are very used to coming to GPs and getting that answer and walking away with a prescription. And there's been much more of a movement in primary care that you can't just prescribe for people. You can't just give them a drug to fix things. I think in City and Hackney we've been quite early on to adopt the social prescribing. We have been commissioning it for quite a while. The trouble is it's very hard to evaluate. It's very hard to show results and to put a monetary value on something. So our early results actually haven't shown we've made a saving. But we feel that it is good and that it will, in the long term, be beneficial for patients and for our community. I also think the NHS, through the STP, through the Sustainability and Transformation Plan, bringing health and social care through local authorities together, this will be one of the ways that we can ensure that social prescribing is funded and that it happens. And what does it mean for a patient? It means that when someone comes to their GP and actually they need to lose weight, or they need to learn about diet, they need to learn about healthy cooking, they need to exercise, the GP is able to signpost them, and through giving them a prescription, they can send them to a healthy eating class, to a dietitian, to a variety of exercise classes, and some of them they can actually exercise as a family and bring their children to. And I mean, that's what we are doing in Hackney and the City, but I think many other boroughs and areas around the country are really yet to find that money to do it, and I think that is the challenge.
Just you wanted to briefly come back.
Yeah, just briefly to the lady. I mean, it goes back to what I told you. You guys are supposed to be miracle workers. You're supposed to know the answers to all those questions. And joking aside, it's not easy. I think it's all about education. Education has a huge part to play. It's educating staff that there is an alternative, and to get them motivated. The easiest way to do that is to talk to them. And I know a lot of them don't want to talk about things or won't want to talk about it, but if you dig deep enough, somebody will always have an opinion on something, and that's normally your way in. You can then open it up and invite them to be part of the process. It's a team game, so try and get them involved, people that are not, wanting to be into the wellness part of your organisation. There are loads of things that they do have an opinion on and want to get involved with, and that will then lead in. It's a long process. Going back to the other gentleman there that was talking about alternative medicines, as I call it, medicine is basically a word that we're using for everything. It's medicine with lifestyle, I think, is the approach that we should all be taking. It's preventative maintenance lifestyle. If we change our lifestyles, if we eat healthier, if we do our exercise, if we go to the gyms, and we be careful in the gym so we don't have accidents, things will change. It's not going to happen overnight, but there are alternatives. The world is changing. And I'm going to share you a little secret, because we're supposed to be honest and open with everybody. I used to weigh 38 stone. I know about obesity. I became what's known as the Victor Khayyam of bariatric world. I liked it so much I bought the company and formed it. Fat people, and I describe myself as a recovering fatty. So if there was an alcoholic in the room and he was no longer an alcoholic because he'd been to AA, he would describe himself as a recovering alcoholic. I'm a recovering fatty. I understand, and I've been involved with people that suffer with obesity. And the truth of the matter is, there are numerous reasons why people are overweight. We're digressing slightly, and I know that my friend is looking at the clock, so I won't. I'll have this conversation with you later. But there are alternatives for everybody. I'm living proof of that. I don't weigh 38 stone anymore. I didn't do it by dieting. It would have taken me an awful long time to diet. I had something called a duodenal switch, which changed my life. I used to be the biggest user of insulin in this country. I used to take 600 units of insulin in the morning and 600 at night. I no longer take insulin. And yes, if I'd have been educated properly and I'd have done all the things that you guys promote, I would never have been 38 stone to start with. But I sat in front of 400 of the world's top bariatric surgeons and said, right guys, you're very clever, and I'm just an ordinary, humble, recovering fatty, but tell me, why are fat people obese? And they all go very quiet, and I got somebody, a gentleman called Albrecht Fines, who is no longer in the bariatric world. I think he's retired now, but his brother also is a very famous individual. And he got up on his soapbox, he was the president of the Bariatric Society at the time, and announced, that's easy, Mike, you eat too much. I said, yeah, you're very clever, aren't you? Tell me why we eat too much. That's the question. And it's different in everybody. So it's a long process. Educating people, changing things is a long process, but it can be done. We need to work together. It's a team game, and we need to get on with it. The sooner we get on with it, we can do it. And finally, just finally, because there's a big issue lots of people have with, well, why should I go private? Whether we like it or not, the NHS in this country is a fantastic, what am I going to call it? It's a fantastic asset we all have. It is struggling because of money. We're living longer, medicines are getting to cure us, they are making us better, but it's costing a lot of money. Our lifestyles are going the other way. We're not living healthy lifestyles in terms of what we eat and the lack of exercise.
I think we need to move on. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm just very conscious. We've heard a lot. We finished with a sort of highly personalised story. From Public Health England's point of view, this matters. We think this is one of the big priorities for the city. My own response to this is measure it. Let your teams innovate. My performance every year is based on what my staff say about me, as well as what my partners say about me, and as well as what the staff survey and health and wellbeing survey says about my team. Once you measure it, it becomes central to people. But picking up the issue is innovations happen when you have deep conversations with people individually and as a team.